Good morning. It's a nice buzz in the room, so I don't want to stop everybody talking. Hopefully there'll be lots of talking over the next few hours. So just say good morning. So for those of you who haven't been before, it's wonderful to see you at the Information Retrieval Forum. Probably got the wrong name, so bear with me. I'm not an information specialist, so I'm an interloper. But I'm Dawn Craig, so I'm the director of the NIHR Innovation Observatory, which is the UK's National Horizon Scanning Centre. We're based upstairs, and one of the sponsors, for want of a better word, of this event, along with the NIHR Methodology Incubator. So the Innovation Observatory has been hosted in Newcastle since 2017 and uses a lot of information retrieval methods in order to support our work. DHSC have funded horizon scanning since the mid-90s, and so I think that they have probably hugely benefited from a lot of your skills and will continue to benefit from a lot of your skills in the future. The Incubator was established, I've got a little bit to read out from the director of the Incubator. So established 2020, builds capacity in applied health and care research by supporting research methodologies, brings together national communities and work streams to give methodologists a collective voice, playing a vital role in raising awareness and supporting methodology careers and leadership opportunities. So hopefully that kind of fits nicely with this session. So information retrieval for me sits at the heart. It's the foundation of evidence synthesis and horizon scanning. And I'd add on to that, it's probably at the foundation of health economics as well, even though health economists probably wouldn't want to admit it. My background's in health economists, so I can say that. With all of those disciplines, I think we're facing expanding expectations about how quickly we do things, about the rapid retrieval of relevant evidence, about how we shape and inform policy and how everything we do is impactful. Clearly, the expertise of this community, of your community, is extremely important to allow us to do those other things. This forum, I think, recognises information retrieval as a methodology in its own right. Today's about sharing innovation, tackling challenges, strengthening methodological standards, and continuing to build a collaborative community. And I think in my 20 plus years of kicking around health services research, I would say information specialists are probably the most collaborative community already. So that feels like you've got off to a good start. I think we're working in a rapidly shifting environment. We've got AI-assisted searching and evidence synthesis becoming more and more frequently used, almost routinely, whether it's the right way to do it or the wrong way to do it. I'll leave you to debate that. I think structured search strategies, you see them being blended now with semantic and generative approaches. Again, there's lots of questions and unanswered questions around whether that's the right thing to do. And I think we're all navigating what transparency and rigor looks like alongside these new technologies as they advance. I hope that this forum will play a part in ensuring that methodologically the development keeps pace with this technology and helps us understand whether we should or shouldn't be doing some of these things. I think it's really important that what we do as methodologists is grounded in evidence, not in hype, and there's a lot of hype around the shortcuts that can be taken. Today, I think the team have put together a really exciting lineup of speakers and presenters, some of whom I've known for many years and some of whom I hardly know, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think we'll cover a broad range of things, from advances in AI-supported searching, improving transparency and reproducibility in search methods, new approaches emerging through the methods incubator for some of this stuff, and across the day you'll see work that pushes the boundaries and strengthens the fundamentals. I'd encourage you, not that you need any encouragement, to fully engage, collaborate and share, question, challenge and connect. I'll just end by saying that information retrieval is not an invisible step. It's a scientific contribution to our research and really, really important. Your work shapes the quality, credibility and the impact of what we do. And I thank you for being here and for your contributions to health services research throughout the year. I'm delighted to officially open the CORE Information Retrieval Forum and hand over to Hannah O'Keefe, who is an extremely talented information specialist and will be your compere for the morning. So thank you and welcome.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Lovely to see so many faces here today. So we've just heard from Dawn Craig, who's mentioned the methodology incubator to you all. So there's a QR code there for anybody who's interested. We also have a stand in the foyer. So I'm Hannah O'Keefe, I'm part of the Innovation Observatory, and I've been working in information specialist and particularly in automation techniques for the past few years. So just to introduce a little bit of the day for you all, we're going to have the workshop after lunch. If anybody is interested in the workshop, there are still spaces left. Please, please, please go and sign yourselves up, either at the front desk or over at the methodology incubator stand. We've also got some of our mini knowledge sessions. We've got 2 on the go this afternoon. And again, if you're interested in these, they'll be held in this lecture theatre. Please go and sign yourselves up for them. So they will be running in parallel with the workshop. So first on our agenda today is Miriam. And we'd like to introduce you, Miriam, if you'd like to come up as our first keynote of the day. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. My name is Miriam. I come from Cologne, Germany, and I was invited because we are working on a project to find an alternative to PubMed. And or how we say it, how we learn to stop worrying and love the uncertainty, or when you say it, this is kind of the academic way to say, fake it till you make it, you know. But we're really serious and fake it, so we're really trying. But let's start with the question. So what do you think, how many rejections does it take to build a resilient European infrastructure? It's more a rhetoric question. You don't need to answer. It's just, the answer is we don't know yet, but we're working on it. So this is kind of a project in the project, you know, like empirical trying how long does it take for the European politics to understand something that you will probably already know or understand really quick. So I'm going to take you on a journey. I don't know, influencers always talk about the mental health journey. I talk about the resilience journey. And I think, you know, it's about recover quickly, and it's also about fear. And I think this journey and the up and downs, this covers our project, what it was like. But I think it could also be a curve is like cleaning up the cellar, you know. Sometimes I have the impression it always goes like, oh, I try, and then it doesn't work out, and I try again, and it doesn't work out, and then I think, oh, will I ever clean up the cellar? And one time we have done it. So that's the way we want to do it too. So, but in the morning, I just need your hand. Who of you is using PubMed for daily work? So quite a lot. And who of you think that you do not need PubMed anymore because of AI? And who think you don't need the mesh because of AI? So keep that in mind. So, PubMed. I think you know what PubMed is, but just let me introduce you. It is the heaviest used database in life science worldwide, which means it's in Europe, in Africa, in Australia, everywhere they're using PubMed. So it is impressive numbers of articles which are in PubMed, and really, really a lot of searches that are there every day. But it's free, but it's not open. So the difference is you can use it for free, but it depends on the funding of one institution, which is the NLM, which is the NIH, which is the government of the United States. And you may have noticed that the government of the United States tends to change their opinion on things sometimes quickly. say it like that. So there's a big risk, I think, and you think probably. So, you know, you already got it, you know, what all the funders don't understand, you already got it, there's a risk, you know. And it's not about blaming PubMed, it's also not about blaming the US, it's also not about blaming Donald Trump. It's just a fact. It could even that they just get out of electricity or something. Or there comes a big storm, you know, there are big nature catastrophes in the US, you know, just like that, you know. We doesn't need Trump for this to being a risk, but I'm thankful for him because now we recognize there's a risk. This is what he shows. So, what you think could happen is they're cutting access. No, they will not do it. Yes, they already did. Not for PubMed, but for other databases. Or they could remove the content. No, they will not do it. Yes, they did. Not for PubMed, but for other things. They make changes in content. No, they will not do it. Yes, they did. The Library of Congress changed their vocabulary, for example. You know, it's not the Gulf of Mexico, it's the Gulf of America now. It's already happening. And, you know, it's Trump, you know, he could say pay for it. And do you know what? I could understand if he would say it. He pays, or the US pays, for the research in medical for many, many years. And everybody was, oh, fine, the US doing it for free. So this is one thing I also could understand, to say, hey, look, and he said in Davos, he said a lot of strange things, you know, but he said the medications in the US are much more expensive than in Europe because we are paying your research, and he's right. So we understood it, and there is not a long way till he understood that PubMed is one big thing in this. And you cannot blame him for it because he's right. You know, it's not good to have just one country pay for the base of the research of the whole world, basically in life science. So, and just see what the real news were, you know. So, and you see, you know, where the fear was the biggest. So NIH budget cuts. 40%. It's not really through it, but probably it's going to be that way. Then, no, it's new, quite off. The Library of Medicine will not longer be the Library of Medicine. It's going to be the, I didn't learn it yet, the National Institute of General Medical Science. I don't know why. I don't know what this move is. I just know that the directors of NLM, the positions were free for the whole last year. So it's not a short thing, it was planned. It was planned to put it in another institute. And if you wanted it to be the same, you wouldn't do it in another institute. So there will be changes, and I don't know which changes, but probably not good for us. Then, when it was about new literature coming into Medline or PubMed, there was the Literature Selection Technical Review Committee, which decided about it. Because, as you all knew, medicine goes on and on and on, and new journals are normal. So, this is not there anymore, just gone. And how? So, how come new journals now into PubMed? We don't know. And I hope not Kennedy tells them which journals. Yeah, but you don't know. You just don't know. Just for 1 year, there came just no new journal in, and now we don't know. They say it's a librarian and a scientist. It could be anyone. I don't know. So, and you probably see the CDC said vaccinations cause autism. So, that's wrong, you know, it's evidence-based, wrong. You are evidence-based workers. that is not PubMed, of course. But if an institution like CDC feel free to say something like this, how far it is to change content in PubMed, or just to leave things out, put all the gender medicine out, or whatever, or everything about abortion, or I don't know. So, but this is not what fears us the most. What us fears the most is the missing news. For example, Elsevier said, all abstracts are open now. This would be great. It helps a lot. The news will never come, but could be nice. EuroPMC say, oh, we do a project to collect publishing data by ourselves. Because, EuroPMC is doing great in open access, open source. But, their data comes from PubMed. And everything they have is the same PubMed has, and additional stuff. So when PubMed stops or getting wrong or anything, also EuroPMC getting wrong. Because they don't get the data from the publishers by themselves. And we talked a lot to them, and they say this is just something which is not their business. Which is okay. They're really great in the whole open access thing, but that's just not their business. Or PubMed would say we are now open source, which would also be great. They say, okay, the whole search infrastructure and also the mesh. Do you know how the mesh is tagged on the articles? No one knows. It's automatic, but no one knows how. No one knows the algorithm, and so we don't really will see it directly when they will change, because we don't know. It's not transparent. And all your work based on this. So this is the news that didn't come. And this was the point, I'm leading the National Library of Medicine of Germany. And I talked to a lot of people about all of this. And we are just a really small institution. And we talked to EBI, and we talked to the MLM, and they all say, no, you don't have to worry. And I was like, yes, we have to worry. And all the customers came to us and say, oh, what's about PubMed? And I want to say, oh, look, we have this great service. And said, no, I don't want to work at your service. I want to know what you do about PubMed. And then I know it exactly. It was on Saturday in April. I was just jogging and running, and the whole thing goes through my mind again and again and again, and I was jogging, and then I just came back and I wrote an email to the other people in our house and said, we need to do something. Nobody else is doing something. So we need to do something. Because what we want, and this is the OldSPA project, is we want easy access to life science literature. And we want this to be resilient and open source. And we want to do this by the life science community, for the life science community. So we don't want it to be something we are doing or something the US is doing or something the UK is doing. It's something about the community. It owns the community. And, we want to build up data, we want to have access, we want to have a network. It sounds quite simple, but of course it is not. So why we think we could do it? We are an kind of small institution, and we are not well funded. So everybody was like, you? No, I tell you why we. So we have a discovery service. It's called Livivo. And there is, of course, PubMed data in it. And I know, and we all know, that Livivo is not perfect. But that's not the point. The point is we know how to deal with discovery services. We are dealing with PubMed data since more than 10 years. We are doing the German translation of the mesh, so we know the mesh really, really well. And we're doing this for years also. We are really part of the life science community. Of course, it's more the German life science community, but we're trying to be more international. And we have really big networks because, you know, my colleagues are really big in research data management for the life science, and we have their really big projects, and we are really successful in it. So, and we are committed to open source. That is one of our base rules. So we know everything. You know, we are not big, but we have experts in every field. So we think we can do it, and we really thought about it. But who are we? And now I'm here. So we have our boss, and he's there for the criticism. He is always saying, oh no, you cannot do it, this is not good enough. You know, this is his role. He's just the bad guy in this project. And then you have like Konrad and me, and Konrad is there for the techniques. He is into bioscience, and he is the boss for the Livivo, so for the discovery project. And you know, I'm more or less trying to manage the whole thing, and I'm there for not giving up. You know, that's my role. And then we have Leila. She also worked for EBI, and she's really, really good with mesh, with LLMs, with AI stuff. So she's there, our data expert. And then we have Petra. Petra also worked in the US and also in the UK, and she is that with publishers. So that's like the perfect team, but there are many more people helping in our institute, and we're all doing this beside our normal work, you know. So what we want is, we want a resilient infrastructure, and it's not additional to PubMed, and it's not instead of PubMed, it's just the safety net for PubMed. So also, I think also PubMed should want us, or want something like this. So it's not, so this is also a big misunderstanding, you know. We don't want to build something, it's just like a fire insurance, you know. And you don't build up, you don't go to the fire insurance at the moment your house is burning, you're doing it before. And this is what we say we need to do. So we want data, and as much data as possible directly from the publishers. And we want you to have access as open as possible and as transparent as possible. And we want a big network. So for example, deciding which comes in this alternative, when, we're doing it like a copy of Medline, but imagine PubMed wasn't there anymore, or just strange or commercial or whatever. Then we would like to find an international committee which decide about which new journals coming in. And maybe also think about, you know, now PubMed is just English. I know that's also your favorite language, but we have some more languages where they also have clinical research. And often clinical research is in the language of the country. So, and why should a use case in Spain not be interesting for you? Just because it's in Spanish, because, yeah, you know, so. This is something we want. So, and now I tell you what we tried, and now you see we really skipped a lot to the next few points, so this is what I'm trying to do now. So first we did a project concept, of course. And then we did workshops. We have more than 500 people from all over the world coming to these workshops or information meetings, and we got a lot of letter of support. We got more than nearly 50 letter of support, also from EBI, for example, and from all the big institutions in Germany, and also from Sweden, and from France, and from Austria, and Switzerland, and kind of that. This is working? think, yeah? Okay, good. So, and then we go to the DFG. I don't know if you know the DFG. It's like the German funding research agency. But we talked to them first. Before we did the application, we said, look, we think this should be done. And they said, yes, great, do it and talk about it before you give us the application. And so we did. And then we had a review. No, but yeah, and then we have a review. So this is all we're done. And then we have a review, and then we got rejection. The review was kind of strange. And now keep in mind what we thought about what you said or not said about mesh and AI. So we have then a reviewer there who asked, why do you want to do the mesh? You don't need it in times of AI anymore. And we were like, hey? And then you saw Layla. Layla gave him like a really basic course of lesson of how data need to be structured for AI. Yeah, and then, you know, this was like, when we came off this review, I was like, what that? Why? Strange question. And then big question was, did you talk to the NLM? And we said, yes. So why are they not in your proposal? Yeah, you know, there's Trump, and they're not allowed, you know? Okay, and so we got the rejection because we are not in cooperation with the NLM. And that the governance is unclear. Yeah, we want to build an open source structure, so governance, that's normal for an open source. We want to do it. We don't think that we could run a PubMed alternative, but we can start. And then, you know, EMBL, EBI, or whoever can run it. You know, that's something. But I think the community should run it. You know, maybe one part is in France, one part is in Sweden, one part is there, and then we are really safe. So we were like, yeah, okay, we don't understand, but okay. And then they got a second program from DFG, like really about data resilience and data safety and digital sovereignty. And so we did a second one. And then now Petra, you know, she's really open when what she's saying. She was like, oh, you want to kill yourself again? Yeah. Yeah, we did. And we got the second rejection. And funny enough, they say, yeah, you didn't do what we said to you after the first rejection. You still don't have cooperation with NLM. Yeah. What do you think? How should we do that? Yeah, no? They cannot, are not allowed whatever talk to us. We talked to them and they said, oh, it's really nice hearing from you. See you later, kind of, you know? So, and then they said it's too ambitious. It was, you know, the second project was just about the data. It's about 600,000 euros, like nothing in research. Really not. So let's try it. You know, when we were too ambitious, then it wasn't just another project that failed, but not many costs. And, you know, everything is open source, so everybody could start again. So then, no, not again. No, you will not do it again. It's no option. So, but what else? So we are again here because we tried and we worked and we did and we did, and now we are at the end. No. But at the same time, we did something that worked. Yeah, finally we did something that worked. Also, we got here, you can have it, it's like Observatory, where you can see what goes in and what goes out by PubMed. So if you're just feeling insecure, you can look if this is like normal. And we are still working on it. You know, you can really see then on weekly basis which articles went out, which went in, and stuff like that. So Observatory is one we just did because we think that is something that is needed just to be, to monitor PubMed, not to control it. But, you know, they are not transparent, so we try to bring on some transparency in there. Yeah, this was a good moment. But we have also other good moments. So, and this is the community. Also the publishers. We have also agreement with Springer Nature, or with Taylor and Francis, with Frontiers, with Thieme, with a lot of, Elsevier not yet, Wiley we are close to. So a lot of publishers were really open to it. And also the life science community. And we have a lot of people reacting. We have a lot of articles about us here and abroad. And you know, there were some articles abroad. I thought, I would never say this about us, but I can say it because they said it, you know. They were like, that they say we are similar to Galileo. Because, you know, like we are saying the world changed and nobody wants to listen. It's like the same, like, you know, we are saying the world is round and everyone knows it's flat, it's flat. No, everything is okay, Trump is okay, PubMed is okay. And we are saying no the whole time. And this is, yeah, maybe. But, and also, and you can see it in the community, ask what can they do? Do you know another example of a project with 2 rejections, where the other don't say, but saying, what can we do? We want this to happen. And this is, so this is really not a normal project or not a normal idea. And this is, you know, what gives us resilience and the power to move on. And so we go to plane Omega. And this is, we are doing now a worldwide fundraising. And it's going to start in the beginning or mid of February. You know, there are a lot of also financial details and tax details we have to clear because this was never done before. And we just ask for funding just for this project. It's not about our institution, it's just for this project. And we are doing it for 2 million euros. And we have 3 phases. Like the first one is like the basic, like where's about the data, you know, 600,000 euros, of course, where we try to build the prototype to get as much data. And then it's going to have a observatory about our project too, so that you can see what is in and what's the difference to PubMed. And then we have phase 2, where it's about the mesh. Of course, it's a little bit more expensive, where we try to take the mesh by ourselves and come close to the same that the NLM does. And phase 3, then it's about really have a user-friendly interface similar to that what PubMed does. And we have a lot of people who are saying, wow, but this is old. Why are you not doing AI? No, we first need the data and we need to have what we have then. And then you can build on everything because then it's open source. You can think of everything, but we need to do our homework first. This is not sexy. You know, it's not new and cool. You know, it's insurance. Insurance is never sexy or cool or new or whatever. And this is also something the funders don't understand because they want it new and cool and there's no AI in it, so it cannot be good. No, it's not about that. You can do this later, but we need to do this first. And so, what was our resilience journey? So it's changed in the way also we all see resilience because we think it's about openness and it's about like being together. And this is how it goes. You know, every time we were like hanging our heads down it was like also the community. And then someone came and asked, what can we do? Often I need to say, I don't know, but it just helps that they ask. And yeah, and we had a lot of times like this. I remember when we got the second rejection, the DFG, they called me. I was in home office, and she said, yeah, it's a no. I said, uh-huh. And she said, and look, it's because you're not cooperating with NLM. And I just did like, and she was like, it's not my opinion, it's not my opinion. I'm just saying, I said, I know. I just want to make it clear, it's not my opinion. I just, yeah, okay. But that also was kind of friendly, you know. And I say, I don't say anything, I'm just breathing, you know. Then that fear, we think fears in this time is good because it's motivation to change something. And it's helpful. So we try to do and take the fear and do something that works out. And yeah, so there's something you could do. You could support us. So when the crowdfunding is coming, of course you can give us money, but you also can spread it in your networks, in the world, and always tell Elsevier that they have to join. Yeah, no, but for example, with Sweden, we have it already, that the consortias in Sweden, they have now something in it that they just give a contract to Elsevier when they're cooperating with us. This is something where librarians can have power. Then they are working all together. You know, like this is resilience happens through we are working together. And this is something we will try. And so I think, will it be successful? You know, we had also when we thought about this fundraising thing, we had people in our institution who said, "Are you crazy?" The DFG said 2 times no, and you go out and saying, "Oh, we're doing it." How can you do this? But I think there's no choice because we need something, and maybe also this fundraising will not work out. But I think it will work out the moment it's burning, you know. Then we lost a lot of time, but we are prepared then. And we are working on it. It's not that we are just doing that. So it is like Konrad and Klaus, they are working on it, but it just goes really slowly because we are not much people. So, what do you think? How many rejections will it take? Will the fundraising work out? We don't know, and we don't care. We will move on, and I hope you will join us and will stay with us. You know, this is about how to be resilient, to work, to event resilience. And it's really also, it's a personal challenge, this journey. But I learn a lot from it. And I just, you know, in Germany, I don't know if you have it, when it's not good, it's not the end. So I think one time, everybody will understand. The people with the money will understand. Yes, so thank you very much. And I hope you have maybe some questions, or we can just talk about it a little bit. So thank you very much.
Massive thank you, Miriam. That was a wonderful talk and really exciting to hear about this. Has anybody in the audience got any questions? Excellent. We've got one in the middle. We've got microphones roaming around for you.
Okay, thank you very much for your nice talk. My name is Joost Daams. I'm from the Netherlands. Came especially for you and other people to get informed. What if you would replace resilience by sustainability in your talk?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, this is also, I would like, I think, in sustainability, I think it's more about reuse, and I think we could have sustainability when we could work with the NLM. But, you know, that's not the case.
Yeah, but it's also a matter of fear, of exclusion, and also about taking the feedback from your funder organization to be serious, because I will foresee challenges in the future of financing and governance. And I understand why they would like you to have a plan to tackle this.
Yeah, we understand this too, but we think it's not, we don't have the time to find every answer. I don't know if you know how difficult it is to have an European long-lasting infrastructure. It takes years. And we think we cannot wait. We have in our plan, there is like a work package just dealing with that. And try to find a solution for it. And I think, of course, AMBL EBI could be a big part of this solution. And we think with an open source software, you know, we don't see us in the long-lasting term. We just say, okay, we do something and you just take over. Or we give you the time to find a solution on the European level. But for this, we need the attention. And we think if you would wait till the European, altogether, the European community have the attention on this, it's too late. There was a talk, we was at the European Commission one time, not we, but the topic was there. And then they asked the question, what about PubMed? And then, unfortunately, the answer from the expert was, oh, it's too difficult. So I think this could never be the answer. But then it just stopped. So you are right. Normally, you first need to have a plan how to do it the long term. But we think when we do it open source, it's also could work out like that. And then in 2 years, maybe you have it. Or I think the moment there really happens something to PubMed, I think we will find this governance really quick.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
So it's not a question actually, it's more of a comment because my background's in education and this exact thing happened in our field. So when Trump came in and said he was going to kind of get rid of centralized education, people in our community said, yeah, but the US has been pioneering RCTs in education for decades. It's a lot of public money. He will never get rid of the What Works Clearinghouse, which is our version of trials.gov for randomized control trials. And they did. And we were very fortunate that people had anticipated that risk and they downloaded those RCTs. So in the days after that, they started sharing them online. And now on the What Works Clearinghouse page, because they were being shared so widely, they have now just uploaded that Excel file. So you can download those trials, but it's ginormous. I mean, imagine downloading trials.gov in a giant Excel sheet. It takes a long time to search. It's basic filtering and keyword searches in an Excel sheet. So I just want to kind of applaud what you've been doing, and I wish that we had actually had those conversations much earlier in our community, and then we wouldn't be in this situation now.
So just to say this, the PubMed data is very well saved all over the world. That's not the problem, you know. And you have also search engines for this. This is also fine. But you all wouldn't have a job if just medicine stays. You know, you are missing when you're not in the next day. And there are thousands of publications coming in, and this is what makes this PubMed problem so big.
I think we've got time for one more, if anybody has a final question for Miriam. No? Okay, one from me. So you discussed
translating the mesh into German, do you envision for this that it would need translating into multiple different languages if we're to make this really international? And what approach would you take to that?
Yeah, it's already happening. So there is a Spanish version of mesh, there's a French version of mesh, there is a Swedish and Scandinavian version, I don't know every language. So this is also what we are trying. We are trying to connect with all the mesh translator and to build up something with them too. And what of course will be a challenge when NLM is not there or not secure will be to develop the mesh itself. And here I see the UK really in front because it's also your mother language. So I think it could be a really great work from one institution in the UK to develop the English mesh, the original mesh, in the next steps. I think it's not something someone in Germany or in France or something should do, it's someone from UK who should do that, I think. And this is how I think it could really work out.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd like to say
So,
final
thank
thank
you.
you to Miriam. Rightio. So we're going to move on to our short oral presentations now, and we're under the research and impact theme for this morning. So I'd like to introduce Liz Stovald, if you'd like to come up.
Hi, so I'm going to talk about rapid evidence reviews and how these can support and strengthen evaluations of healthcare innovations. So my background is as an information specialist, and I worked in a Cochrane review group for a long time, and then in a commercial consultancy. And now I work in a health innovation organisation, UCL Partners. So we share a name with UCL. We're not UCL. We're a private but not-for-profit health innovation network. And by health innovation, I'm talking about the new ideas, devices, and methods that are introduced into healthcare. And this can encompass devices, digital tools, including AI, and novel delivery models and processes. It can also cover administrative procedures like scheduling systems, that sort of thing. So at UCL Partners, we're working in a very specific geography when we're doing these real-world evaluations, and that's in North Central and North East London. It's about 5 million people, and it's a very diverse population. And we're working with NHS, academic and industry partners when we're evaluating these innovations. And what evaluation seeks to do is to understand whether an intervention has reached its intended audience, and whether it's had the desired impacts. Has it improved outcomes? And for who, how and why has it worked or not worked? And the rapid evidence reviews feed into the discovery phase of an evaluation. So that's when the evaluators are working out their evaluation questions. What outcomes are they going to measure? What questions are they going to answer? The rapid reviews, they're not full formal systematic reviews. They're not intended for publication. They're internal. But they do follow standard systematic review guidance to help with transparency and to build trust in the findings. They're conducted by a single reviewer, which is me, and I normally have about 4 weeks to do these from when we agree on what the eligibility is. And they can be done to support internal projects, but also external projects, in which case they're shared with the client. So I do develop a protocol, but it's an internal protocol. I'll talk about the literature search bit in a minute. Study selection is the standard 2-phase selection process, but I sometimes do the full text review and a bit of data extraction at the same time to just speed up the process. And the data extraction is pretty light touch, as is the quality assessment. And then the synthesis of results is narrative. There's no statistical analysis. That's not part of the, that's not what these reviews are for. So the search methods, they're systematic, but they are pragmatic. So I limit the number of databases that I'm searching to 2 or 3 at the most. I make full use of available search filters, and I'm very happy to pinch other people's search strategies from relevant systematic reviews. I tend not to use study design filters because these reviews include any study design that answers the question. So I tend to be searching on outcomes for these reviews, and I use quite an iterative approach. I use quite a lot of targeted supplementary searches, citation searching, to fill in any gaps, find additional supporting studies. So I'm going to look at 2 case studies. These are examples of reviews that I worked on when I first started at UCLP, and these really helped me to work out my process and how I was going to approach this sort of work. So the first one was a review of home care technology for adults living at home but in receipt of social care. And so the home care tech could cover things like video phones, motion sensors, cameras, video doorbells, other smart home devices, smart pill reminder dispenser systems. And the second review was for social prescribing interventions for adults living with cancer or chronic disease. So that was any type of cancer, any chronic disease. And social prescribing, that's done by social prescribers, also known as link workers, and they're helping people to access wider support services to help them with their emotional, physical needs, and sometimes practical needs, such as managing their finances. So for both of these, I'm just going to quickly look at the aims of each review, search methods, and then how the findings of the review were applied in the resulting evaluation. So the home care tech review had 3 main questions. We were looking for existing theories, frameworks or models that have been applied in home care technology implementation or other similar programs. And the effectiveness part was looking at the effectiveness of the implementation. So that was things like acceptability of the tech, adoption, implementation costs, feasibility, and barriers and facilitators to the implementation. And the context part was about things like clinical factors, housing, environmental factors, socio-economic factors, and how those might have impacted on the implementation. So the search strategy, I designed it around 3 concepts of the population of adults, the home care tech, and the outcomes of interest. I thought I'd share the detail here. I thought you guys might be interested. But the terminology for the intervention for the home care tech, I did quite a lot of preliminary searching to gather together terms for this. It was like really variously described in so many different ways. Geron technology, I'd never heard of that before. Ambient assisted living, technologies for aging in place, assistive robots, that was a favourite. So I didn't use study design filters for this. As I said, we were interested in any sort of study design. So yeah, these are just example search terms. So the findings, we found a whole range of different models and frameworks that have been applied in our population. Technology acceptance model was the most frequently cited in my set of included studies. A whole range of factors were identified for success or failure of an implementation, and privacy came out really strongly as a factor mentioned by patients, carers, and providers. In terms of applying the findings, they were integrated into the evaluation framework. So there were questions included in the data collection materials based on the technology acceptance model. And similarly, questions about privacy were also incorporated into the evaluators' data collection materials. And the whole review was shared with the wider project team. So that included people who were involved in the actual implementation. And also there was a cost effectiveness evaluator working as part of the team as well. So it went to them. And cost was highlighted as a factor in the acceptance and adoption of this technology. So the second example is the social prescribing review. So there were 2 main questions around this, which was the impact of social prescribing for adults living with cancer and that could be impact on any outcome really, so implementation outcomes, but also clinical outcomes, quality of life, cost, resource use. Whereas the chronic disease population, we were only looking at economic and cost outcomes. So I developed 2 search strategies for this one because of the 2 different populations and the slightly different emphasis, but I ran them together to account for the overlap and just to make the process more efficient. Luckily I found a published protocol for an evidence and gap map of social prescribing, so I could pinch their search terms, and the economic and cost outcomes I found in the Canadian Drug Agency search filters database. So the findings from this one, so there was some evidence to show that social prescribing did have some positive impact on some outcomes in patients living with cancer, and benefits and barriers were also highlighted. So some of the benefits included that people really valued the one-to-one support and an opportunity to discuss their concerns with the social prescriber. Barriers were things like financial challenges in actually being able to attend the activities that they were prescribed, and having mobility problems, which also affected whether or not they could actually attend these activities. And the chronic disease population, the findings were really mixed. So some of the studies found cost savings, and some of them found that the interventions actually increased costs. So the findings from this review went into informing an evaluability assessment, which is background information and considerations that the evaluators would use to assess whether or not an evaluation could be done of this sort of intervention. And then the review was packaged up with some other pieces of work into a learning report, which went to the innovation provider to help them think about the long-term development of their service and how it might be evaluated in the future. So with these reviews, I obviously had plenty of challenges. The topics were really broad, so patients with any cancer, and there were multiple questions in each review. And the terminology for the interventions really wasn't standardised. They're interventions, they're innovations, they're new, so it's evolving. It's quite nebulous, but also that was really quite interesting and quite fun to delve into all of that. I'm searching for outcomes rather than study designs. So as far as I know, there isn't an equivalent of the Cochrane RCT filter for implementation outcomes. So I've collected together my own sets of terms for this, but I haven't evaluated them in any sort of formal way. So maybe that's a little project for the future. If retrieving manageable results and weighing up the comprehensiveness versus the timescale, these reviews have to be done in a tight timescale. Otherwise, they won't be of any use to the evaluators. And I have to acknowledge that the review findings are going to be limited by this rapid methodology, and because they're done by one person, so of course there's going to be, there may well be some bias, and I may miss relevant studies, but I think given that the purpose of the reviews is to inform future work and it's not to guide clinical practice, I think the methods are proportionate for this purpose. So I've found that I have been able to adapt systematic methods and maintain some rigour, and this has been able to support and strengthen the evaluations. Some of the search activities I found really useful, just to highlight, was the sort of idea of the iterative searching and conducting very targeted, very specific searches to supplement my formal systematic search. I've made heavy use of PubMed, particularly the similar articles function and the cited by. I really find that useful. So yeah, PubMed is essential. And yeah, it's been really nice to have seen a really tangible benefit or impact that this review work has had on the resulting evaluation. by directly inputting into the evaluation framework and the data collection strategies. And it's also been able to highlight implementation challenges and successes, which could also inform the evaluation frameworks and methods, and also highlight evidence gaps, which the evaluations can seek to address. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Liz. Again, a really interesting talk there. I think we've probably got time for one very quick question. One at this end.
I could probably shout loud enough anyway, but anyway, my name's Catherine and I do some rapid evidence reviews as well. Do you use any particular tools to help kind of streamline the programme? So like screening tools, things like that?
Yeah, I use Rayan to screen. So I use the text highlighting and the relevance ranking. So yeah, that's essential.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you use to kind of like for the kind of bringing the stuff together and the extraction? Sorry, my words aren't very good.
So I'm experimenting with some of the AI tools. I don't have subscriptions to things like Illicit and that sort of stuff. I'm working on requesting those sorts of things. So I've been trying out some of that, yeah, and sometimes it's helpful. I definitely use something like Copilot or whatever to change the tables in PDFs into Excel tables so I can copy and paste them. Something I also do is when I've got my results tables together, I can pop that into the Copilot and ask it to summarise that narratively for me. So that saves me some time when I'm writing up the results, obviously with the caveat that I check and review for accuracy and that sort of thing. Yeah. So I'm trying stuff out.
Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, so we have 2 more oral presentations before the break. I would encourage you all, if you've got any questions for any of our speakers, to please approach them in the break and just have a bit of a chat. So next up, I'd like to introduce Claire. I'd like to make your way up.
Oh, lesson learned, don't fall. Hi. I'm Claire Eastaugh. I work at the Newcastle University under the Innovation Observatory and the Evidence Synthesis Group. And today I'm going to talk to you about some research I've been doing for X amount of months, exploring the evolution of target trial emulation using citation analysis. First, before I get started, I want to do a little background on where this research takes place. So the NIHR National Collaborative is part of the NIHR Research Support Service, which supports researchers in developing competitive funding applications for health, public health and social care research. The National Collaborative was established in 2024 and it has a 5-year mission. There are various work packages within the collaborative. I am in work package 5. And that's led by the University of York, and our focus is on horizon scanning, and we're going to contribute to the in-progress RSS research strategy. So, while I'm going to talk about this very much, please keep in mind, work in progress, and it is a case study, I am going to turn this presentation on its head in a little bit, so it's not going to be a test, okay, but I do want to ask some questions back. I'll introduce the project. I'm going to introduce its aims, the objectives and methods, and where it currently stands. But I'm in a room full of very intelligent people, so I'm going to elicit your help. And, why not take advantage of you having to sit there? So, let's go into the project a bit. The aim of this research is to explore the utility of citation searching in mapping the path of a research method as it transitions from novel to adapted to embedded into everyday practice using citation analysis. I've detailed the 3 objectives on the overhead, and I hope that the intelligence that we gather through this may be used to intervene or help adoption of research methods happen sooner, provide useful advice for applied researchers, and keep research funders abreast of what may be coming. With further testing, hopefully, the information will allow wider identification and adoption of innovative research methods and support awareness amongst researchers and funders. Citation analysis. I realise I'm in a room full of information specialists, but I still want to do a little whistle-stop tour of what citation searching analysis is, just for anybody who's unfamiliar who doesn't really do it. So citation analysis starts with a known paper or papers, otherwise referred to as a C paper. Backward citation searching focuses on covering previous or foundational work which have helped inform the known article. Forward citation searching uncovers newer articles from the known source. Following citation searching, you can do some citation analysis methods. So core citation analysis uncovers articles that are frequently cited, while finding papers that share similar research or methodologies is known as bibliographic coupling. These citation searching methods complement each other. Citation searching helps to identify the literature, while citation analysis aids in understanding how the literature is interconnected. And I want to just mention what target trial emulation is, or TTE. It's the focus of our research, but is not the focus of this presentation. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. This is just to give you a little flavour. So TTE, or target trial emulation, it's a promising emerging research method, and it's used to analyse observational data in a way that mimics randomised controlled trials. In 2016, Hanan Robbins published a framework for TTE, and on the screen I've given you the citation, because we're information specialists and we like a citation, and the framework as described in that paper. Robbins has been exploring TTE since probably the 1970s, and since 2016 the body of literature has increased, so that's why we've chosen it as the candidate for this particular project. Okay, let's get into it a little bit more. So first we identified 10 seed papers, and they came from scoping reviews and systematic reviews of target trial emulation, specifically mentioning target trial emulation or trial emulation. And it could be applied, it could be methodological. So in Web of Science was predominantly used to gather the citation information, and where a paper wasn't available, I used Citation Chaser. To start the backwards citation searching, I took these 10 papers and the Hanan and Robbins 2016 paper, so 11 papers in total, downloaded their references to produce the first block of data for screening. 283 references. My colleague Nicole and I, shout out Nicole, we conducted title and abstract and then full text screening on these 283, and it left us with 76 includes after the full text screening took place. I then took these 76 papers, put them into Web of Science and Citation Chaser, got their citations and downloaded them. Anybody guess what the number could be? 1,601. So we did that exactly the same thing. We did the title abstract screening, we did the full text screening, and that gave us 110 includes. What do you think happened next? I like the nervous laughter. I appreciate that. From the 110 includes from this block, we got 2,569 references. I can't emphasize enough we manually screened these. But from that, after the screening process took place, we ended up with 8 includes. Nice little number. Again, did the whole thing again, and we had 1 include after the last block took place. We decided we'd reach saturation point at this 1 include. Let's not go any further, we don't need to. However, you'll notice there's a lovely blank space on the slide. There's still one more thing we wanted to do, and that was a forward citation of the Hanan Robbins paper. We decided we were just going to take this to 1 degree. We didn't want to go too far forward. We just wanted to do 1 degree. That gave us 1,617. references to screen. That number is not the full reflection of what was available, because obviously we've got some of that within the C papers, and we've already got some of the what would be forward citations within the other blocks as well. So we screened those, and as of Tuesday last week, yep, we have 534 includes from this one. We are not going to do this any further forward. We've put a full stop to it there. So this means we screened manually 6,227 items. And that's left us with 729 items to extract data from. As this is a novel method of applying citation searching and analysis, I did not know how to predict these numbers. I didn't know how they were going to go. And from the nervous twitters and titters in the room, I think it might be something similar as well. The sudden leap and then the massive down is surprising to me, but it's going to look fantastic on a graph. It's also useful to note that all the references weren't available from Web of Science and Citation Chaser. You can put anything in, you can see that it says 56 references, but when you go to download them, you might only get 50. It just simply says unavailable. So these numbers aren't actually the true reflection of the number of references that were used in all of these papers. It's just what we were able to get from the data. The other thing that I found very interesting as well, when we were going backwards, we weren't just going backwards, we were going sideways as well. So it wasn't like, in my head it wasn't chronological, which was weird. Might just be me. So, next steps. As I've said, we have 729 includes. This is 729 pieces of data, articles we're going to extract from. The extraction information that I feel at the moment that will help build this evolutionary pathway I've detailed on the screen. I'm focused on the who's, the what's, the how's at a high level, rather than digging too much into the texts. The information, it considers whether a research method is being talked about, by who, in what space, and how. Such as it is applied. Is it methodological? Is it a commentary, an article? Is it a review? Is this research method more dominant in one healthcare area or another space? Is one researcher more dominant than another? What will the timelines of the publications show me? And are there any other guidelines or frameworks that contribute to this research method? However, as I have said, I am in a room of very intelligent people, and I am going to take advantage of the situation like I don't usually have the opportunity. And as I said at the top, I really hope you'll help. So I'm going to turn around and pick your brains now. You are my experts. I've got a lot of data. A lot of data. And when I say the 729 to people, I do get the ooh reaction. But I've got some questions that I would really appreciate your help to answer. So, you're my project team. It's the beginning of the project. We are spitballing our ideas and our thoughts. Okay? You don't know anything about target trial emulation. You don't really do a lot of citation analysis, so you might have done some citation analysis, but you've never used this method this novel way before. How we're going to go about doing some stuff. And because if you were here at CORE last year, you know I love a QR code. I have a QR code that does link to a Padlet. On that Padlet, I've detailed the aims and objectives of the project. I've also put the data extraction information that was on the previous slide, and I've put these 4 questions as well. However, I'm hoping to have open discussion and questions right now, because I know I've still got time. Sheila's not giving us the baton. Oh, I'm nearly done. Oh, shoot. So I want to ask these questions to you. How would you define a key development point? What do you think is a key publication? It could be a seed paper. It could be something within the research. What information is valuable to you? As an information specialist, I freaking love a keyword. So let's see these keywords on the journal articles, but they're not necessarily there. Have you visualized citation analysis before? If so, please tell me what you used. That's a big one. And do you see any potential in this method? So, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Claire. Right, we're going to leave the QR code up there for a moment. Does anybody have any questions for Claire? One in the middle. Where are my microphone, please? Oh, there we go. One up in the middle.
Thank you for your very interesting talk. I always think that searches are often term-based. I always call them term-biased, rather than report-based, and comparing that and mirroring that to the concepts you have defined. I always think that citation analysis, co-citation, and bibliographic coupling is a way to get to grasp a notion of how research has been reported. So that's one thing. Yes, I'm using visualizing and tools. It's called Fox Viewer.
I am familiar with Foster, yes.
Yeah. And yes, I have an explanation for your certain drop, because you are rerunning this and reusing the author network. So what I always like to think, is that there are globally 7 to 10 really topic experts, right? And these people gather on conferences, they know each other, they know each other's work, and so on. So basically, by following citation networks, we are following the author neural networks that are out there. In Web of Science, you can also create those neural networks, and you can create them by Vosviewer as well. So, and the reason for the drop, I think, because I didn't follow your steps, but my idea behind that is that you follow the same procedure, and at the end you will find, first you find all the missing neural networks, and then by continuing the same methods, namely the author co-citation network, then yeah, it drives up. There's the certain drop. Wouldn't it be interesting to replace the author co-citation network by the principle follow the money? So you follow the grants and follow and funding also, in addition to the author neural networks.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting. I think that's definitely something we need to consider, is definitely following the funding, if we can get that information. Am I being kicked off stage now, Sheila?
Yes.
Yes.
Apologies there. But yeah.
Thanks.
So again, just to say, if anybody has any more questions for Claire, please find her during the break. Or email her. Right, so last session before the break, we next have Mina.
Hi, thank you. I definitely am an interloper. I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the work I've been doing in that applied space of returning data to our stakeholders, and to share a little bit about the next step, which is heavily leaning on the skills of your group. So I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist. I work at Oxford, and I've been running something called the Oxford Student Survey for the last 7 years, of which we've had 5 waves of data collection so far. So I thought I'd just briefly tell you about the survey, and then talk to you about our approach to impact, focusing on this data platform that we've developed. And I'll use it for 3 examples of data, focusing on bullying, and if there's time, I'll go on to the other 2. So what is Oxwell? Well, it's an online survey. We recruit through schools. It's for children years 5 to 13, so 9 to 18-year-olds. We don't collect identifiable information. We don't ask names, dates of birth, addresses. We really promise young people we don't try and identify them to improve accuracy. And so far, we've had over 120,000 responses from young people. It's a mental health and well-being survey, but it's at the intersection of mental health and education because so much of these are overlapping. And it's prioritises student voice, so the young people in class answer the survey. No adults are involved in the answering any of the questions. So I feel like I'm sitting on an unbelievable amount of data that is incredibly useful to a whole range of discourses going on in health, in education, and kind of in the public domain. Sharing the data is massively important to us. And because it's repeated, we can be exploring emerging issues. So this is just a snapshot. For example, last year we had about 35,000 students participate, and 32,000 of those were in secondary schools, and I'm going to show you the data platform we've created to give that data back to our stakeholders. So just to kind of, just remind you that these are the kind of whole range of areas that we ask about, which is what you would potentially expect from a mental health and wellbeing survey. So I'm not going to go into that in detail now. So what is our approach to impact? Well, first is we prioritize a student. We give the data back to young people. We make videos. We enable them to access it. We really value their input. The local authorities are key partners, so you can't participate in Knoxwell up until now unless your local authority paid us to participate. And that the only reason we've done that is we give a lot of data back, and it's very easy for a local authority never to look at it. But we've worked that if you have to write a contract, tell us what you're interested in, allocate the person in the local authority who's going to look at the data when you return it, much more likely then to get them to be looking at it. And then we've created this data dashboard that is, I suppose, my pride and joy right now. So to give the data back to the schools in a way that they're able to inform their decision making, as well as to our local authority partners and as well to the government and a lot of third sector partners who want to look at it. There's a massive research stream that I won't focus on, but obviously there's data that is fortunately of great interest to many people. So the data-driven approach is that data kind of feeds everything. We want people, if they're going to be taking decisions about young people, to base it on the data before they take the decision. So we give immediate reports back to schools. We kind of, as I said, ensure that our commissioners know all about it. And then thinking of citywide approaches, for example, Liverpool Children's Commission has been involved. They've kind of embedded Oxford data into almost every part of the way they're thinking about children's needs. But I'm not going to talk about my little information retrieval system called the Ox Hub. So it's this data platform that we've created. So every school who participates gets a login to their school's data. My local authorities that participate get a login to their whole local authority data, separating it by all the schools. So for example, if you're a school, this is my school. I've had 1,600 odd students participate, and I can now look at all the aspects that we've asked in the survey. We put safeguards in, so if there are less than 5 people answering a question, you can't access the data. But you're able to kind of start to look through this hub at everything to do with your school. So I can provide different views, so you can look at the whole Oxwell data, so parts of the Department of Education, Department of Health are wanting to access this, so they can look at that. If you're a different local authority, you can choose your local authority and look at the data from your local authority. And if you're a trust, this is an example of a multi-academy trust, 10 of their schools did it, every single child in those schools was asked to participate. They can now look at their data in a really interesting way. And then this is an example of how they can look at their results for the whole of the trust, but also by the 10 schools. And it's not a naming and shaming exercise, so I can give you either access to look at the school anonymously or by name. So if you're a school, you can go in, you can look at a whole range of factors. This is an example of school satisfaction. So, well, my school deals well with bullying. Do you strongly agree to strongly disagree? and you can look for your school about that. But then what you can do is add filters so you can really start to understand the experience, for example, by gender and by those that often feel lonely. How do they feel about certain approaches taken in the school? So what we want to enable is a kind of nuanced understanding of risk and then looking at that for their own population. But we've learned that schools aren't interested unless they can benchmark against other schools, so they can look at the whole sample, they can look at their region, and then they can look at their own school. So that's kind of the platform we've developed to get your data back. And this is the whole range of filters that you can add. So I thought I'd give you just an example of bullying and telling you what we're going to kind of plan to do with it. So if this is your school, you can look at kind of bullying by year group. So the lighter blue is I've not been bullied, and then there's a different responses of degrees of bullying. And you can see that as the years progress, your exposure to bullying kind of gets less, and that's what we would expect. But what we've had is these schools kind of look and go, you know, the River Learning Trust, for example, saying, well, actually looking at this data helped us see that we're focusing only on cyberbullying in our schools, but actually we're able to see that we need to change that entirely because the majority of bullying remains a verbal experience. That takes place mainly in the school, but a large amount of it also perceived to be taking place in lessons. So we found quite interesting outcomes as a result of being able to look at your own data in a nuanced way. But before I move on to the other two areas, just to briefly show you, I thought I'd just share what the next step is, because this is where I suppose I'm really curious to get this right. We have now funding to take this platform to the next level, where you do the survey, you are automatically told through the platform where you differ to schools that are statistically significant to you, be that, you know, similar deprivation indices, similar size, similar location. So, for example, your school has somewhat slightly higher rates of bullying in Year 9 boys than we would expect. And then the next step being we would like to link that to the evidence base now. And these are a menu of interventions that you might like to try based on your findings. And if you do try one, this is a way to evaluate it using our platform. So we're at this really interesting juncture where we have to find a way to bring evidence into this platform so that our users can use it. And I suppose what we've learned in this space is what an incredibly interesting implementation partner schools and are, because you give a head teacher information, they change the curriculum the next week as a result of it. So I'll give you two more quick examples of this. So, for example, loneliness and belonging. We're really preoccupied with loneliness. So it's associated with every poor negative mental health outcome. It's not something I, as a psychiatrist in a clinic, can prescribe changes for, but schools can do a lot in the loneliness area. So we focus a lot on it. And you can see that 10% of this whole sample say that they feel lonely often. So you can look at kind of school belonging according to loneliness. And this graph just shows that in the top, if you hardly ever feel lonely, your feelings of kind of disagreeing with the school belonging question are very low compared to the group where you often feel lonely. You're far less likely to feel like you belong at the school. So we've been able to ask, well, what activities engage you most with the school community? So that's the language young people have told us is the right language to use if we want to ask about belonging. And so we were able to offer 19 different options to young people about which of these activities help you belong at school. Each young person who answered the question saw those 19 in a different random order. And we're able to give those results back to schools. And I'll share it with you because it is quite an interesting finding. So these are the 19, and for the whole sample, they're choosing school trips as the activity that enables them to belong most, followed by lunchtime and after-school clubs, and then celebrations and special events. But what we're able to do, and I go and speak to senior leadership teams in our schools, is, okay, let's look at the group that you're most worried about. What are they saying helps them feel a sense of belonging? Is that the case for those that have high school absence, for example? Is that the case for X and Y? And so that's how we're kind of trying to find it. And you find that heads are immediately changing the way they're starting to work as a result of these types of presentation data back to them. So you can look according to, this is just that finding for those that have clinical anxiety, likely clinical anxiety and depression. So my last slide, just because I'm a psychiatrist and I'm very interested in mental health support, very interested. We ask in great detail about what support you sought in the last year and whether you found it helpful. We ask about formal, semi-formal, informal, and digital support. But I'm just going to share one slide about semi-formal because schools are interested in that area. So we see that 13% of kids have said that they have gone to a form teacher. 11% have said that they go to an other teacher, and then the others are kind of school counsellors or other school staff. So I've had an interesting head teacher look at that and go, right, I need to change my whole pastoral support system because we only train select teachers for mental health. But that shows me that I need to train all my teachers. And so we just added some filters to this to just see. So when you add the filter, you see that if I add the group that say they've already been absent 16 days. So in the school year, we did this survey in March. And obviously, the most absent kids are not in school the day we asked the survey. But for those that are in school and saying that they're school absent, you can see that actually they're going to this other teacher more than your average kid. And then if you add another filter, for example, self-identified as being neurodiverse, for example, with autism spectrum disorder, we add kind of absent and self-identified autism, and you see that the pattern changes. So if you as a leader want to think about how to change and improve provision, you could start to apply filters and do that. And I suppose for me now, the next task is, how do I bring the evidence base into a platform like this? How do I generate it? And then how do I bring it in a way that is helpful? So that's all I wanted to share. And obviously it's not my work, it's so many more people than me. So thank you.
Brilliant. That's a really fascinating piece of work, and it was lovely to see all your graphs there. I think we've got time for one very, very quick question before we head for the break. No?
They want their break. All right,
They
if
want
you've
their
got
break. We're
ideas,
dying for
come.
their coffee. Right, thank you very much. Okay, guys. So we're going to have a quick break now. If I could ask you all to be back in here for 1:45. I apologise, we are on a slight delay there. Coffee available outside. And again, if you've got any questions for our speakers, please feel free to try and find them. And please explore the stalls and our posters that are out in the front there. Hello everybody, welcome back. I think we've got most people back in and seated now. So we'll make a start. For this next session, we have 3 oral presentations followed by 3 lightning talks.
And again, we're sticking with the theme of research and impact. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Jabez up to the stage for our next oral presentation.
Thank you. I'm Jabez, Research Associate with the Information Specialist team at the Innovation Observatory, along with Sonia Garcia. I'm here to present about the work that I've did with the title Trend Analysis and Visualization on Horizon Scanning Publications in Web of Science, PubMed, Lens, and Scopus database with the WASViewer software. So the main objective that I was working with this particular tool is I was trying to play with this particular software to actually use the data so that I do which could help me to visualize and understand the international landscape of countries involved in the horizon scanning publications across various databases. And also I thought I would use the address data which is available in the bibliographic database to analyze the contribution of one particular organization. So I thought I will take NIHR IO, the Innovation Observatory, where I'm working, to see how much we are contributing for the horizon scanning projects, and also to explore how horizon scanning project is used across multiple areas of science. So the methodology that I have used is very simple. I have just tried to search between the year 2021 to 25. I've just taken 5 years, and I've just used two simple keywords: horizon scanning, or the scanning of the horizon, which will be only from the title and the abstract area. And I have searched only these 4 databases, which is PubMed, Scopus, Web of Science, and Lens, because only these are the data which are supported using the bibliographic data with the WASViewer. So WASViewer is a data visualization software which is available on free, which you can access from wasviewer.com. So here I have just given a small table on what I have done. So the first initial, the green color data shows the records that I have got from each platform. And then I have worked on 2 particular kind of data viewing analysis, which is with the country landscape, and then the second part is with the keyword occurrences. So what I've done with the address data from each bibliographic database is I've tried to convert the address into country. So I have not used the actual address, but I've used the address data which can be converted into country using the thesaurus system. So you can see in the second line where I have used, you can see there's a reduction in the number using the thesaurus system, where I have tried to manipulate the address into country. And then setting up the analysis for the country landscape, where I've used the minimum occurrence should be less than 2. And then I have picked up the maximum number of threshold possible, so that I could get a clear clarity of image, so that it provides a valid number of results. So again, for the keyword occurrences, I have not provided any threshold, but I have just used the minimum frequency or the threshold of 5 across all the databases. So on visually looking at the data from PubMed, so this is what you could obtain, because this chart provides you the detail of how many authors are contributing from each clusters. So because I have converted the address data as country data, so that you can see authors from various countries and how much they are contributing with the horizon scanning project. And as I told you, I have also tried to work to find out how one particular organization is actually working with the horizon scanning project. So I have just taken, for an example, NIHR IO. So you can see at the bottom cluster, which provides you the data of the NIHR IO where we are contributing, and the scale, the trend of, I have kept the scale as the average publication year. So it shows the authors from various countries and in what range of year they are actually doing the publication on the horizon scanning projects. So this is from the PubMed data, and this is the similar data that we get from the Scopus, and it also provides you the very vivid image, like showing which countries are actually having the higher nodes. So you can see United Kingdom, which is actually with the actual higher contribution of horizon scanning projects in this particular database. And here also you can see how much the NIHR IO is actually contributing with the nodes connected to the United Kingdom. So this is the actual data view that you get for the Web of Science data. So here also we can see the actual nodes, which represents the authors from various countries, and also I have worked on the separate output for the particular organization, NIHR IO. And as I told you, we are not able to get the organization data for the LENS database, which is not supported by this particular software. On working with the keyword occurrences from PubMed data, Scopus, Web of Science, and LENS. So there are few things which I found very common. For example, horizon scanning project is very closely linked with public health, technology assessment, and health policy clusters. So which is highlighting its strong role in anticipatory governance, decision making, and health system planning projects. And also you can see the prominent clusters which are very much associated with clusters like artificial intelligence, machine learning, forecasting, and pandemic studies. So this strength and links it strongly shaped that the horizon scanning studies are very much linked with digital technologies and pandemic related research. So this is the picture that we get from Scopus, which gives the similar kind of a result, where we find that horizon scanning literatures are connected to policy and decision making research. And similarly, we can find that these studies are also related to COVID and pandemic, so which helps us in relation to crisis response and preparedness in the recent years, based on the average year publication for each data. So this is the overall data visualization that we get for Web of Science data, which is also giving the similar kind of results. But here you can see the strong nodes like foresight, forecasting, and artificial intelligence are very much strongly linked to horizon scanning projects. And then you can see that this particular slide makes yellow color more visible, which shows that publications are found very recently, which is almost close to 23 and 24, 25 years. So this is the data visualization that I get from the LENS. And here we find, though initially I showed you on the chart that we got the highest number of records from the LENS database, which is around 1,738 records. But here we see that the horizon scanning node is not that much intense, which shows that horizon scanning projects or they are not much visibly seen in the lens database. So one more thing that I could assess from these data visualization is I can look for the new keywords when I'm preparing my search strategy. So I could look at various keywords that is connected with the horizon scanning projects, so which will help me to enhance my search strategies for the projects that I'm working with. So the outcome or the recommendation that I found from this tool is you can actually manipulate with the data. You can use the address data, so I can work on a particular country, or I can work on particular universities, what kind of data visualization I want. And it also gives you the international landscape of country chart using the address of the authors, because that is the basic bibliographic data that we have in the bibliographic outcomes that we get from the databases. And it also helps the information specialists to identify new sets of keywords to enhance your search strategy. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, guys. That was really good. So has anybody got any questions? No? There's one there.
Just sorry, maybe this is a very basic question. So I'm just wondering, so let's say all of this analysis based on the included studies, right? I'm not, so, yeah, no. Is it based on which subset of studies? And then maybe just practically, how, let's say, how would then, can you just give an example of how that could potentially impact a future strategy? So let's say if you see that this is not there, then you would do that. I just wanted to maybe...
Okay, you're saying how I can enhance the search strategy?
Like, I'm just trying to think, like, if I look at all those links, and how would I then know which of these should be, like, is not working or is working? I know, and if it takes too much to explain, don't worry about it. I'll ask you during lunch.
So you want to see which one is working?
Yeah, like how would you, because you said this can be used to improve your search strategy. So could you just give an example of how you would use that or have used it?
Yeah, for example, when you look at the cluster for horizon scanning, which is huge there on the right, and you can see the other terms like future, trends, and there's something, there's a separate term called horizon scan, but it's not mentioning horizon scanning. So here from this data picture, we are trying to picture that what are all the other kinds of keywords are used by other authors. So I can, if I, in my search strategy, if I have missed any particular keyword, I can then add it up to my search strategy. Thank you.
Sorry to once again react. Thank you very much for your presentation. How does this compare to AI tools like Elicit and Perplexity, which I can also use by prompting and asking for overlapping and additional concepts? That's the first question. And how does it compare to a tool like Carrot2, who has also in the foam tree a visualization part? So does this way perform better or different, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think your first question is about AI.
Yeah.
This is a very standalone software, according to what I know.
Yeah.
And if I'm right, I don't think any AI technology is actually embedded with this particular tool. So it's all from the data what you have.
Yeah. Yeah, but you also have similar tools like Notebook, large language model, and so on, that you can analyze your own results. And you could argue that by using AI, you would expand the data set rather than limit what you are doing now, your own set of data, so that you get new ideas of new terms and new concepts. So that would be an advantage for using AI in this particular case?
The limitation that I find in this software is because there are some columns where you can use only different sets of data in this particular software. So I have used the bibliographic type of data and only particular database, their formats are only supportive presently. So I don't know whether whether there are any other new tools. I'm not very sure about that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Jabez. I'm Narissa from the Amsterdam UMC. I have two questions. My first question is about the setup in VosViewer. So you mentioned that you use the default of 5 keywords. Did you also adjust the resolution to show specific leading nodes in a specific dimension?
No, I did not make any. It's only with the keywords. So the number of keywords and the threshold. These were the only 2 things that I
adjusted.
Used.
Okay. Yeah. And my second question is about the use of lens. We saw that the term horizon scanning was very limited. Would you include another database for your approach?
No, actually, with the bibliographic set of records, these are the 4 databases which is currently supported by VosViewer. But there are other methods, like you can use the RIS file, but using the RIS file, you cannot work on an organization data. You can work with keyword data, but it's not matching up with the organization data.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, we'll take one last one there, and then we're going to have to move on.
It is more a complimentary comment rather than a question. Thank you for the presentation. I think many will find it useful. That is a free tool, and anyone can use it. It doesn't require programming, coding, so it's advised for all of the information scientists to have a go with it. When you are using a Dutch tool, you should expect a lot of questions coming from Dutch scientists, obviously. I wanted to say for the comment about the AI that what we are seeing here is using structured data and explainable presentation. So we could say where these links are coming from. When you're using AI, it is mainly unexplainable, and it can work with unstructured data as well. So we could ask that I'm designing a search strategy, suggest terms for me, and it will. What would be useful, I think, for the information specialist in the next year, probably here, would be to compare what we are getting from the structured data to what we can get with the same input with the large language models. So I've seen people doing RCT classifier versus RCT search filter versus just zero-shot prompt in large language models. It will be great to see if we feed this data from Web of Science to Copilot and ask for co-authorship networks or country co-authorship or a term analysis to see how do they do that, what is the performance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You.
Okay, thank you. Very lively conversation there, which was great. Again, if you've got any questions for Jabez, please find him in the lunch break. So, next up, we have Gemma and Natalie. If you'd like to make your way to the stage.
Hi, so I'm Gemma, this is Natalie, and we have been doing some research into what the most effective method for getting Google search results into a RIS file format is. So this concept kind of arose from some personal experience I had of trying to use GenAI, ChatGPT to be specific, to get some Google search results into a RIS file format. And 90 records and a lot of hallucinations later, I was kind of banging my head against the wall. And I was manually copying, pasting information into a homemade RIS template. And I kind of wanted to see if there was a more efficient way to be doing this. So I did some research and I spoke to some colleagues. And it seemed that there wasn't really a decided best method. Some information specialists just avoid Google searches. Some people just end up manually creating records in EndNote, which is obviously quite time and labor intensive. And we do think Google searches are important to include in reviews. So 9% of some included studies from a recent review we did came from Google searches. So we really wanted to find an efficient, simple, and hopefully quick way to do this.
Okay, so thank you. So what we did is, quite often when we're running a Google search, we run our Google search strings and then we copy and paste the results into a Word document. So usually the authors can rapidly screen this. They can look at the title and go to the link. They've got the Google snippet, which is roughly an abstract of what's in there. So they can sort of get a feel whether or not the records are worth going forward for further screening. But quite often when we're doing our Google searches, we'll do lots of little mini targeted searches, and it's really, really difficult to try and deduplicate it when you're doing 2 or 3 very similar Google searches when you've got a Word document that looks like that. And so what we wanted, and also as well, some of the results we find from our Google searches we've found through our other search methods. So what we wanted to do was find some easy way that we could deduplicate our records, and that would aid, it would sort of reduce the screening for our searches, and it would also sort of help with our Prisma tracking as well, if we could sort of easily deduplicate and work out how things were working. So what we did is we tried 5 different approaches for creating a RIS template that we could get into EndNote for further analysis. We chose these approaches just basically on the fact that at least one of us had used that method at some stage, so we thought we'd compare them just to see what they're like. So there wasn't really any rhyme or reason to why we did it. So what we did is we had 3 information specialists run a Google Incognito, the same Google Incognito search, and extract 50 records that we were converting into a RIS file, a RIS template on the end. So we did this manually, which was going to the web pages and sort of copying and pasting the information into a RIS template. We used a Mendeley web clicker to get that to generate the records for us. We looked at using ChatGPT to create a RIS file from the Google Word documents that we had. Oh, by the way, I meant to say there were 2 information specialists doing each task as well. And with those tasks, we had varying levels of experience so that we could get a better feel for what was going on. We also created Word macros to create a RIS file. For those of you who don't know what a macro is, it's essentially you automate sort of repetitive data processes. So you sort of design and create a macro, and then at a click of a button, the next time you do it, it's automated. And then finally, we also looked at a web scraping tool called Data Miner. So what we did is we looked at the average time for the 2 information specialists for these 4 things. So how long did it take us to capture the data, which was essentially running the Google search and copying and pasting 50 records? How long did it take us to create each method? So again, it could be installing the software, designing a macro, setting up RIS templates. A lot of these would be one-off timings as well with the methods we used. We also looked at how long did it take to run. So that was the processing time for the method to convert the Google record into a RIS file. We also allowed sufficient time because we thought the title and the URL were the key bits of information. So we allowed steps where we could allow that to factor in as well. And then finally, we looked at the average time it took to run the whole process altogether. We also then, so once we got the records into EndNote for analysis, we compared them against our gold standard set of records. We used our manually created records for this because we considered those to be the most accurate because we'd gone to the original web pages. The key bits of information we were looking at was the title and the link because we thought that was the crucial bit of information our searchers would need. We also looked at some other fields as well when we could. And the main parameters we were interested in was accuracy. Did those records in the title and the URL field match our gold standards for both searches? Completeness, so did it have a readable title and a working URL link for both searches? We also analysed whether the data for either researcher was either partially missing or fully missing as well.
So as we expected, there was a bit of variation between the same standard Google search. So even though we initially extracted 50 records, we ended up with 39 common ones to both searches. So these are what became the gold standard. In some approaches, however, we didn't get all 39 of these. So we kind of limited our analysis to just approaches where 2 sets of data were present. So Mendeley had 39 records, but ChatGPT only got 35, DataMiner got 27, and then using macros got 25. And we're not entirely sure why this happened, but we have a few theories. So there was a few issues with the macro formatting. So when they were uploaded into EndNote, the records were kind of smushed together. So it could be there were additional records there, but we couldn't recognize them when we were going through them. Data Miner, it's a live search, so it was done on a different day, and obviously it's a slightly different Google search, and we couldn't quite find the incognito mode to activate that, so it wasn't running incognito. ChatGPT, who knows, quite frankly. It could have generated data, it could have just misinterpreted data, we have no idea. It could just be natural differences between Google searches. And Mendeley, it has that kind of additional manual inputting element, so all 39 were present there. So some initial time comparisons. So running the searches and pasting the data took 1 to 2 minutes for all approaches. Setting up any software or any setup steps took 4 to 7 minutes for all approaches except for the macros. So as we expected, this took a lot longer. It was quite variable. So one staff member took 45 minutes, one took 4 hours, 15 minutes. But then the runtime for that was a bit inverted as well. So time to run was also quite a variable process. So ChatGPT took 15 minutes only to do all this, whereas manually it took us 1 hour and 40 minutes. So overall, ChatGPT and Data Miner were the fastest. The whole process for ChatGPT took 21 minutes, and Data Miner was 33. Whereas manually, it was about 2 hours, and Mendeley, using macros was about 3 hours to do, so quite a big time difference. We have done some kind of theoretical scaling up to a larger sample size, so of 300 records, and as you can see, manual record creation is not a feasible thing to do for a large sample size. Nobody has 10 hours to spare, nor is Mendeley really. However, if you do kind of take into account the fact that a lot of these have one-off timings, especially with the macros, then this time could be reduced. So the setup for macros averaged about 2.5 hours. So if you theoretically have a perfect macro, and then you can run it in 2 seconds, the time comparison might pay off. But based on some very rough calculations, we think it would take about 15 hours to make this perfect macro. And then you'd need to use it on about 10 searches a year to make it worthwhile. Don't quote me on that, that's not good math. So we looked at the completeness and the accuracy. So manual creation, ChatGPT, and Data Miner all gave us 100% complete records. So again, this means the title and the URL field were both there, but not necessarily that they were correct in relation to the gold standard. Of these approaches, manual creation and Data Miner had 100% completely accurate records, whereas ChatGPT, on the other hand, was only at 61%. We did have an issue with the majority of the URLs from one of our data sets, so they were broken links which we couldn't follow, so obviously it was listed as inaccurate, but that's why we've got such a large range for that one, 31% accurate to 88% accurate, so just worth keeping in mind we've got 2 data sets to go on. Mendeley was a very close second for completeness at 97% and 92% accurate, whereas macros was the least accurate and the least complete of all of them. We had a similar issue with the URLs in that one, in which a lot of them weren't formatted correctly, so the range is even more horrific with that one, 4% to 96% accurate. So just keep in mind, again, 2 data points. So there were more records with partially missing data in the macros and the Data Miner group, and this is just because they're going off the titles as they appear on a Google search page, so obviously it normally cuts off the title. We also looked at the ease of use and the knowledge required for these things. So this is obviously a little bit subjective to us, but it's based off our observations. Manual and Mendeley were relatively easy to use. It's mainly just clicking, copying, pasting. You just need a basic knowledge of RIS codes, some keyboard shortcuts, web extensions, things like that. ChatGPT and Data Miner was a little bit more difficult. You've got some extra familiarity with creating prompts and evaluating for hallucinations, as well as a bit of understanding of recipes with web scraping. Whereas macros are, again, it's a very demanding task to do. It requires quite a high level of knowledge about word formatting symbols and macro recording. If you are very experienced in this could be an orange, it could even be a green, but for our team, it was definitely a red. And then looking at the results overall. Manual record creation, it doesn't take much knowledge, it's very easy to do. It does give you 100% complete and accurate records, but the time isn't feasible, especially with the scale up. Mendeley is a little faster, but slightly lower accuracy and completeness, as well as it's still quite a bleak scale up time. ChatGPT is quite mixed, so it's obviously the quickest. It's got a really good scale up quality, and it's 100% complete. It does require a little bit extra knowledge, but once you do it a few times, it gets a lot easier. The issue is the accuracy, really, again, is quite low. Just keep in mind, again, small sample size. Data Miner comes off looking the best here. It was only 33 minutes to do the whole thing. It's got a fairly reasonable scale-up quality and 100% complete and accurate records. It does require a little bit more knowledge to play around with, but again, once you've done this process once or twice, it does become a lot easier. And macros, again, they come in last. It took the longest to set up, and it's got the lengthiest scale-up quality, and you need a high level of knowledge to create it. It's got the lowest completeness and the lowest accuracy, but obviously it's quite dependent on the macro itself. If you're operating at 96% accuracy, it's a lot better than 4, so it's all quite personal. To summarize, for our main fields, the title and the URL, data miner proved to be the most accurate, the most complete, and one of the fastest approaches. You do end up with more records with a partially missing title, but all the URLs are intact. So if you compare that to a Word document you'd normally send a screener, you have pretty much the same amount of information available to you and the same amount of clicks, but it's in a much more accessible format for us, basically. And we have looked at some additional fields. We've done a limited analysis on this, but it does show that ChatGPT gives a most complete record for the additional fields at 79%. However, for its 35 gold standard records, it generated 100% of its abstracts, despite being told numerous times not to. And when I asked it, it would lie. So we cannot clearly, evaluate the accuracy for that one. So if you take into account the additional the additional fields, it kind of paints a different picture. Data miner comes up as the best performer, but it's the lowest and complete additional fields. So it just depends on how important those additional fields are. If your reviewer is happy with title and URL, or if they need an abstract, how much time you have to do it, everything really is quite subjective. But based on our findings, we think for further research, ChatGPT and data miner would be good to go. I'm not sure if I've got much time. 2 minutes, okay, well, let me tell you about our future plans. So we would like to hear your opinion. We've got a lot of ideas and not much direction at this point. So if you could tell us how you manage Google results, that would be great. If any of these methods are speaking to you, you want us to look into them further, if you've heard of something else or you use something else that we could look at, that would be brilliant. But we would like to do this on a larger sample, maybe about 300 records. We think it would be easier for us to just have one person run all the searches and work from the same Google document. And if we do use macros in the future, we want to try and create the recipe beforehand to save a bit of time. We would like to do some further analysis for the completeness and the accuracy of the additional fields, somehow factoring in ChatGPT's hallucinations, and maybe introduce some other Gen AI software to compare against each other. So if anyone's got any suggestions on that as well, that would be great. Thank you very much.
So once again, encourage you to use the wonderful QR code. Has anybody got a quick question?
Did you make an active decision not to use Google Scholar, which does have an easier export?
Yes, we did. We wanted to just focus on Google search results for when we're doing kind of the supplementary searches.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's really useful because this is the kind of thing that we can use as evidence when explaining to other people
and
why.
again, so we wanted Google searches because a lot of our Google searches, we're looking for things like reports that aren't on Google Scholar, blogs. Certainly the search we generated there, a lot of the information is found through local authorities and things, so it's not coming up on Google Scholar. So.
Yeah, that's really useful to know. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you both. I, for one, am an avid avoider of Google searches.
Okay, so we are now on to the last of our oral presentations for this morning's session. So, moving on, I'd like to invite Michael Cook.
Thank you very much. Afternoon, everyone. So yes, I'm here today to talk about how our UKHSA Knowledge and Library Services impact guidance, policy and practice in public health. I like to call it impact the public health system. So given the themes of the day and given the audience in front of me, I'm not going to explain what we mean by impact, value and why it's important for library services to collect it. But I'm also going to let you peek behind the curtain just slightly to start with. This is an example of how I use value and impact. I'd describe it as my operational use of value and impact. So when I'm doing any sort of presentation, sort of training or advocacy work, I will have this slide as my first slide. I have this on the slide when I'm doing my introductions, so people can not only hear me to say how brilliant the service is, how brilliant I am, they can also read it as well. And I try to have this as kind of linked to their peer groups. So say I'm doing some work with health protection team, it will be value and impact feedback from health protection, so they know I am not talking rubbish. So, yeah. So I'm going to have that on there. Whilst I introduce us. So you get to say, Knowledge and Library Services, you may remember us as Public Health England, Knowledge and Library Services. We support UKHSA staff, the Office for Health Improvement Disparity, OHID staff in DHSC, NHS England public health staff, and we support local authority public health teams who don't already have a library service supporting them. So I used to work in a local authority public health team myself, and one of my directors of public health, Helen Lowy, we always used to say, good public health is system-wide. So we don't support the entire public health system, because everyone does public health work, whether they want to admit it or not. I think we support a lot of the key stakeholders. So what we're going to look at today is how we collecting the impacts that has value and impact data. We collect it in two ways. I don't think anyone's going to describe how we collect our value and impact data as Galileo. I'm going to be honest with that. And the time period we're going to look at is April 24 to March 25. During that time, on our internal system, RT, we had 9,705 recorded requests from 1,900 or so unique users. But those, I'm not going to make you remember those figures. And those figures aren't accurate because not everything goes to that system. And, of course, data quality issues. So the first way we collect it is we have a monthly qualitative survey. For this, we just use the critical incident technique. This is something I'd used in public health in the past, but also it is very linked to the NHS England kind of value and impact work. It's based on that. We did try to use the generic impact questionnaire, but it does low uptake on ours, and I made it far too convoluted for people to use. So basically, what we do is, after each contact, or each time somebody uses the service, we tend to contact them 8 to 12 weeks after. That's not set in stone, because obviously if we're supporting a systematic review, after 12 weeks, we'll just say, Michael, I've not even started screening yet. You know, so certain things take different times, but that's the kind of rough thing that we use for that. We know the times aren't perfect, and we are looking at maybe doing it a little bit different, and I do that centrally. And then the other one we do is a quantitative survey, and we do this annually. And this is sent out to all users. So if the qualitative one is about that one particular contact, this one is kind of how the service impacted that user over the entire year. For the qualitative one, we received 501 responses for the time period. For this one, I think it was 313. You can see the example there on the right-hand side. And this was just kind of looking at all the different ways we impacted them. And these were based on the thematic analysis of the qualitative data, which I'll touch on to next. How we analysed the quantitative data just involves, if anyone's ever used Microsoft Forms and the Excel output of that, you'll know that the data did involve a lot of grumbling, swearing and losing my temper, especially with multiple choice questions. So, yeah, so what we do for the qualitative data, we thematically analyse a month at a time, then we did it as a whole set at the end of the year. Just to say is, all the data is manually anonymised before it goes into AI. Even though, because we don't ask for people's details at this time, people do try the hardest to try and kind of out themselves within it. So what we mean by that is I would just go through each record every month and just make sure that we can't identify who they are. And we use Copilot, an internal enterprise Copilot, and a tool called Trace, which for the first couple of months I was calling Grade, which was confusing my information colleagues. So I've pinched this off the actual front of the Trace tool. So Trace is an internally developed tool. UKHSA developed the Trace tool, open source large language model Llama 3.3-70p, in order to leverage artificial intelligence to speed up qualitative analysis of text data from public health surveys, questionnaires and interviews. As you can see, I'm not the AI expert at all. And when people ask me about it, I say, oh, it reminds me of a bit of NVivo, if you've ever used that in the past. So it's that sort of tool. So we have kind of evolved how we've done the thematic analysis. So when we first started, I think we piloted it in 2021. We did it properly in 2022. I was just doing it solo, just on my own, lacking. I think it wouldn't pass any academic rigour. I would describe it at its best. It would be like a undergraduate dissertation level of thematic analysis, but it was good enough for what we needed. But as the numbers grew, it just became too much. And the last presentation talked about taking 10 hours, not having 10 hours to manually input 300 Google results. You know, we got 501 responses last year. I don't have the time to manually thematically analyse all those. So we initially started using Copilot. It says 10% of results, but it was a little bit more than that, because if we got 30 in a month, I would be manually checking 3. That doesn't really make sense, does it? And kind of overall, it matched the themes when we did it month by month. There's one exception to that, but we'll come on to that in a few slides. But what was tricky, and again, I'm going to refer back to the previous presentation, is when we asked it to develop the themes and then match value and impact quotes to those themes, it started hallucinating them, it started making them up. Whatever I put in, it was, and because, luckily I recognised that they were incorrect, but that was quite frustrating. But upon reflection and having used Copilot much more, I think that was probably just my poor use of it. I think my prompts, my prompt ability has evolved a lot. So Trace is, so now we use Trace as the main tool. I'm thinking about ways how to do Trace and Copilot together. And Trace has manual human checkpoints between the coding, the theming and the mapping points, which is useful. I've got to be honest, without doing it manually for the first couple of years and kind of immersing myself within the data, I'm not sure how confident I would be trusting or using those AI tools. So, you know, if you gave me a completely different set of qualitative data set, not sure how much confident I would be. But again, I think that might have just been down to me not knowing what I'm doing. So this is the quantitative survey results first up. So the results there are the ones you'd expect. If you've ever done anything around value and impact within library services, the ones at the top are the ones you expect. You know, it's about keeping up to date, it's filling evidence gaps, it's saving the team time. The ones we are more interested in are the ones that are unique to us as a service. So what is our unique selling point? And, you know, towards the bottom, it's, you know, the enhanced response to outbreaks. We're a civil service organisation. There's a lot about kind of enhancing the organisational reputation. We've not got a slide in it, but the kind of individual impacts people said, again, out of the 313 responses, 230 wanted to increase their subject knowledge, 205 said we saved them time. I think it was over 170 said we increased capacity of their team. And that's all well and good, but those are things we should be doing, those are things we know. And what we're trying to evolve our system to do is kind of the unique things, kind of how do we drag those out of people with their unwillingness to give us proper feedback. So if we go to the qualitative one here. So this is, at the end of the time period, we reviewed it as a full data set, so rather than just sticking all the months together, we did it afresh. And these are the top ones. I said when I was doing it month on month, thank you, they were broadly matched what I did, but when we did it in the full year one, the second one down, the collaboration and networking, that was one that I'd never teased out when I was doing it manually. So that was a new one. It was kind of quite a positive challenge to me, and when I look back on it and reflect on it, yeah, it was there, and I just not noticed it. So that is kind of what's helped thaw me. I think that's the best way to say, challenge my thinking in terms of the Copilot. Well, yeah, they're the main ones. And I should say the actual theme description, that was done by Copilot. Then I amended it, and then my manager Nick, who's in the audience, actually turned that into legible English, which you can see on the slide. So I just thought I'd share some of our favourite, statements, value and impact statements, our kind of favourite bits of feedback over this time period. This is pure public health. I do love this one, and this is just how a literature search done by one of our colleagues has kind of helped increase vaccination in underserved populations. The reflective practitioner in me said, it doesn't go quite far enough, you know, what is the importance of increasing vaccinations, but we can't have everything, can we? And then we've got some more here. We've got, you know, how we've supported strategy development, how we've supported policy plan and direction. The one in the middle, again, that's with us supporting outbreaks. That's you know, that's a big one there, and it just shows how we are actually impacting the public health system. I think these might have all been UKHSA-based feedbacks. But it's also important to how do we use it as an organisation, because obviously we have to, you know, prove our worth and show why people should be using us. So we use it in our business, we use it in our budget setting conversations, we use it in our business case preparations. A few years ago, we used it to ensure that our local authority public health support was kept permanent, because it was just a COVID-only thing originally. I gave an example of how we use it in presentations and training. We use it, I think the examples on the right-hand side are, the top one is from our annual report. But one I really enjoy doing is, every month when we get them, we ask people to put their the name of the person in our team who worked with them, and every month I will share the positive value and impact feedback to our colleagues, because sometimes you're a bit cut off, you know, because you're not working within your team, it's not part of your team. So people, in fact, one of our colleagues calls it, I give out flower petals every month, so it's a positive thing, and that supports our, you know, feedback and our personal development review forms, which I will not comment on. So in summary, we have collected lots of survey responses. We have lots of demonstrable impacts, and a rogue apostrophe there at the end. And we are increasing the use of AI to reduce the time spent and hopefully improve the quality. I've not really touched on it, but there's been myriad challenges. And from this we can say, it's not as pithy as gives you the gift of time, but we have our, what I like to call our value and impact proposition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Really
Yeah.
interesting to see how you're implementing that. We've got time for a quick question if anybody has one.
No, that's fine.
Silence all right.
Sounds.
If anybody does have questions, feel free to catch up with Michael and Ray. Thank you.
Right, so we are now moving on to our lightning talks. So we've got 3 lightning talks before lunch, and first up is our wonderful Claire again. She's back.
Try and stick to time this time. Hello. You know who I am, I've already said. But I'm not going to talk about your research today, I'm going to talk about me. And I'm going to invite you to look at my diary. So, I've been an informational specialist for 5 years next month. Before I worked as an information specialist, I worked at a utility company. Do not ask me about gas and electricity prices, I'm not interested. And I was in various roles, from phone monkey to training facilitator to quality engagement to compliance. It was diverse and it was interesting. It is not what I would call a career, but I did take advantage of opportunities, which I think is very, very important. In 2019, there was an opportunity to take my redundancy package. It was nice, I took it. I'd been through several restructures at this point and I was mentally exhausted, so I needed a change. I packed my desk, grabbed the money, and on the end of the August that year, I walked out the door for the final time. Mic drop, I was out. I went back to university. I wanted to do a master's degree again. I've already got one. Why not do 2? And this one I did in MSc in Information Science and Library Management, because I, in the words of one of the greatest movies ever, The Mummy, I'm a librarian. I did it at distance learning at Northumbria University, and at the beginning of 2020, I got my first volunteer position as a librarian at the Hancock Museum Library. Go and check it out, it's full of birds. Then March rolled round. Can anybody tell me what happened in March 2020? Best not actually. So the dining room that was my study space turned into my son's school too. This is my transition. So my degree was 2 years long, and the second year in 2020, I was beginning my final dissertation, double semester. I got a job. It was as a research assistant information specialist here at Newcastle University at the NIHR Innovation Observatory. Originally it was the IO contract and the Cochrane Incontinence under the evidence synthesis group. I've worked on various projects and various contracts since then. By the end of 2021, I was awarded my degree with distinction. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now I'm working as an information specialist and I have the qualification to back that up. Because I enjoy a challenge, along with doing my degree, homeschooling my son, starting a new job, I was also on the CLIP North East Members Network Committee, where I organised the virtual conference of the Beyond the Horizon in May that year. So if you were at that, hi. I spent the next couple of years really learning the ropes, working different projects and seeing where my interests really lie. I'm really interested in novel search strategies. I'm a complete nerd about that, so let's talk. And I really, really want to develop a search filter. I'm sad. I really want to. So if anybody wants a hand, hit me up. And I do know I'm a nerd and a geek, and I fully own that. I also start to see my name appear on author bylines. I run a book podcast. I think anybody who's an author is a freaking rock star. I was so excited to see my name on those author bylines. It was ridiculous. So all this excitement turns to new beginnings. It's also time to start stepping up and stepping forward. So in 2024, I went to our first ever conference in Prague. So anybody who was at GAS, hello. I presented a poster at the time. It was research me and my colleagues undertook with the Nuffield Council of Bioethics. I couldn't have done that conference without the support of two colleagues, Sonia and Eugenie. They really looked after me that week. It was absolutely amazing. And I also spent 2024 organising the inaugural Future Foresight and Horizon Scan conference hosted by the NIHR Innovation Observatory and the first CORE last year. I started to present. I heard words like keynote and experience being said. I blew my mind. Now, I have my first ever lead author publication out in the world based on work that was undertaken at CORE last year. I've got a report on the novel use of VOS-Viewer as a search mechanism in horizon scanning and bioethics, which I'm super excited for, and hopefully the submission will go smoothly for the publication. I've done presentations, and as an ex-colleague once said, there's always a project that just won't go away. I submitted that one to a journal, so hopefully it will go away. It was traumatic, but we're getting there. I'm really proud of myself because I stepped out, and I've completely changed from a job to a career. And I don't know what's next, but I'm excited for it, and I'm up for a challenge. Hopefully a search filter. And that's my 5 minutes. So what I would say is, I've learned a lot of things. You need to write things down. You need to communicate. If there's change of staffs, you need handovers. You need to ask questions. Nothing's dumb. And if there's a problem, talk it out. And explaining your search process with people really is helpful. So yeah, that's my 5 minutes up.
Once again, big thank you to Claire. Wonderful presentation, second time around. So we'll move on to our next lightning talk now. So this is Nyla in April.
Hi everyone. My name's Naila Dracup, and I'm here with my colleagues Rachel and Anna and April, and also other department, Rachel Pisano and colleagues. So we're from the Centre for Evidence and Implementation Science and the Health Services Management Centre and College for Medicine and Health, but that's such a mouthful, colleges, so use acronyms throughout this presentation. Just to say, so this presentation is about how we've gone from disruption to increased connection. So in January 2025, Rachel, Anna and myself from formerly Warwick Evidence, moved from the University of Warwick to the University of Birmingham. And as I'm sure you can imagine, getting an email to say your whole department is moving was a bit of a surprise, to say the least. The reason why that came around was because our director, Amy Grove, was awarded one of the 125-year anniversary chair roles to launch SEAS and the Department for Implementation Science. And if you want to know more about that QR code links to a webpage where Amy talks about her experience of relocating an entire research group to a new institution. So this slide is just to give like a snapshot or illustrate our 3 teams and the work that we do. As you can see, there's overlap, but there's also distinct roles as well, and how we sort of support and collaborate and complement each other. So the main area where we all support and carry out literature searches, and health as well is the same sort of key theme. But yeah, we all have like distinct roles too. So April's involved in formal teaching, and the KES team, they're an inquiry service, inquiry specialist library, but they also carry out evidence summaries, and they also provide teaching and training. But we're 1 year in, and so as you can see, there's obviously opportunities to link up and to learn from one another, and April will be talking more about how we've done that and what we're looking to do. And also to say, there's the wider library team as well, which underpins obviously what we all do, and we're in touch with them, and they get in touch and ask us, we can do things like trialing services or products, and they can support us too. So yeah, just to hand over to April.
Thank you. Woohoo. Next slide. Yeah, so I'm April, and I am from the BEST team, part of what we're talking about. So we've obviously been working together more closely for about a year now. One of the ways we've been working much more closely together is they've bought me, and that always works. So they bought me for 1 day a week, which allows me to be exposed to different types of evidence synthesis work that I might otherwise miss out on. So I've recently done a STA, and it's just been a really good experience, quite frankly, to be with other information specialists, because I was by myself up to that point. Also within our research group BEST team, we do often have undergraduate interns come and work with us. So I thought this September I would apply to get an intern for next summer. And because I'm so closely linked up with the other 2 groups, I could really quickly and easily put in for shadowing days in those 2 groups into the internship application. So hopefully that will make it more successful. I'm also wanting to develop my career, and it's been really useful to have a wider network to tap into. And as a result of that, I've got a mentor from what do we call it? KES, yeah, from KES, that is going to come and help me with career development. And then more generally, we've got sort of group meetups and information knowledge exchange, and we've got Teams. So if we've got a problem, we just type something into Teams, which is lovely. And we're just trying to get to grips with AI like everybody else is, so we do that together. So those are the kind of things we were doing and are doing. And then looking to the future, I hope that we can continue. So whether that's through putting in some joint grant applications or even more service level agreement stuff between the teams in terms of buying out each other's services to increase capacity when we need it. Working together on methods research, be that through grants or just more informally, that would be really, really good. Obviously, within my team, there are teaching opportunities, and that is something that is available to people, in the other teams, should they want to come in and have a look at that kind of stuff. And then a whole another presentation is essentially, career pathways, the difference between the academic pathway and the professional services pathway. I'm on an academic contract, some of the others are on a professional services contract. What are the pros and cons of all of that, and where do we go with all of that? But like I say, that's a whole nother presentation for another day. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. And I think, from my point of view, it's been wonderful. And from everybody else's point of view, they've gone through the Kubler-Ross change curve, and they've come out the other side. So it's been good. So thank you very much.
Right, okay, so we're on to our last lightning talk before the break. So I'd like to welcome Jose to the stage. Oh, you're over that side.
Hello everyone, I'm Hussein Devliered, information scientist at Epicenter UCL. I would like to present a tool that we developed for removing duplicate records from clinical trial sources. As we know, searching clinical trials is important to have a comprehensive and unbiased systematic reviews, but we have some challenges for searching and managing records from trial registry sources. So if we want to have a comprehensive search, we need to run multiple searches and having multiple export files. And also some of the trial registry we don't have a risk export option, so we need to convert data from CSV or XML. And another challenge is related to reference management tools and systematic review tools that often fail to identify and remove duplicates because the metadata in trial registry is different, and even for those sources that provide risk files, we can see some inconsistency between the data that presented in the risk file. And we know that doing this all process manually is a tedious and time-consuming process. So we develop a free online tool that you can upload your data from 5 sources: Cochrane Central, Embase, clinicaltrial.gov, WHO, ICTRP, and Scan Medicine. You can upload multiple files to the tools, and it automatically combines these files. The tool identifies duplicate records in 2 steps. In the first step, it identified and removed duplicates automatically based on the trial ID. In the second step, it identifies duplicate records based on the title and year, and provided to the user to interact with the tool to remove the duplicate records. At the end, the tool provides a CSV and RIS file for clean data that you can use it for the other sources, other software. Here I brought some screenshot of the tool. On the left-hand side, we have a upload data section, functional tabs, and a user guide to how to use the tool. In the auto deduplication, we can see a table that shows the master and duplicate records. And also you can download all the data for transparency and check how the tool works. It's the manual deduplication that provides those records that potentially duplicate, and user needs to interact with the tool. At the end, we have a summary of data, how many records unique for each source and duplicate records. At the end, we have an option for downloading these data for clean data and also duplicate data. This tool is free online. It helps you to do this all process quickly. But I would like to mention that it's a beta version. We've done some evaluation, but it's good to, and it would be great if you could use it and provide us some feedbacks. And this is a QR code to access to the tool. Thank you.
Right, excellent. So that concludes our morning session. We are running a little bit over time, but don't panic. We have flexibility in the schedule. I'm going to run through just a couple of quick bits before we go for lunch. So just as a reminder, after lunch, we go straight into our workshop sessions and into the mini knowledge sessions that are going to be held in here. If you haven't signed up already, please head over to the Methodology Incubator stand and get yourself signed up for one of our sessions this afternoon. So lunch will be served out in the atrium. We are serving hot lunch today, and we'd like you, after that, to head off to the various sessions. People will be around to point you in the right directions of where to go. And then afterwards, we will have another quick break and back in here for the final session. So again, we'll be rounding people up and ready to come back in here for 3:30. You will be pleased to hear my colleague Pauline is taking over from me this afternoon. So you'll have a break from my voice and you'll have somebody else. But that is everything from us this morning. Thank you all so much, and big thank you to our speakers. And again, if you've got any questions or want to have a chat with them, please do find them during the lunch break. Thank you.